wanted to tell the women's stories. I found myself at times getting so wrapped up in that story that I forgot about the men that were murdered. It was really hard for me to just try to look at the whole picture and put it into perspective. That was extremely difficult.
Well, and too, because I think you came into the story having a little bit of knowledge about the case that I prosecuted, but you were just as perhaps open to learning more about both of them. So you kind of came in on this level playing field where I only knew about the one, and I only focused on the one. I knew very, very little about the prostitution cases or the trafficking cases. So my knowledge was over here. And I'm like, but wait, I know about all these murders and all of this other stuff going on. And I think maybe because I walled myself off, because maybe had that case been taken more seriously, we never would have had these homicides. So perhaps I walled myself off into just really knowing more about the homicide. Plus, I didn't prosecute the trafficking case, so.
Right. And I want to delve into that a little bit about the trafficking case, because it was never prosecuted. It was sort of like set aside.
It was.
So it wouldn't complicate the murder
Correct.
case.
Yes.
And I know that you talked to Amy about that.
I did. When you met with Detective Pasco and other officers about this case, did you ever meet with any of the prosecutors or any kind of victim assistance or anything along those lines?
No.
Just the detectives. And then prior to the case, I mean, now we're kind of really going forward. Before that case was dismissed, after he was convicted of and put on death row, did anyone talk to you about dismissing that case or say, hey, this is why we're doing it, or explain to you?
No.
No one? No, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
It's awful.
Yeah, I didn't even understand what happened. I figured it out myself. I was like, oh, I see what happened here. Yeah.
I'm very sad that no one got in touch with you and told you why it was dismissed or the circumstances, because you had a right to know that. Absolutely had a right to know that.
Yeah, no, I didn't know. I didn't even know until I saw what I saw on the news. He was even in trouble again. Like, I didn't even know that, I realized, I just put my own story together. I thought, so he probably tried to get out, he got on a bond. They let him out, and he tried to take someone's identity to try to, be out here longer. And yeah.
Did you ever see him after he was arrested?
No.
But it's important to know how things happen. And in this case, as an assistant attorney general, special prosecutor, I was sworn in to Summit County as a special prosecutor to try the homicide case, not the trafficking case. The trafficking case was indicted to, in some ways, act as a way to keep him in prison so that the homicide and capital murder indictment could be drafted properly, because they're so complex. But sometimes you can overwhelm a jury. So you'll see these cases, they have 500 counts. That's too much.
Oh.
So in our case, if we had tried all of those things together, had we been sworn in on the trafficking case, it would have been a lot. And then you have appealable issues, and we wanted to keep a clean case. And so after the conviction of Richard Beasley in the sentencing, the trafficking case was dismissed. So it was never tried. And that perhaps is one of the reasons that this case did kind of stay with me and bothered me, is that there was this whole other group of victims that never had their day in court. And so explaining that to her, and I didn't want her to see me as one of those other law enforcement people that perhaps she dealt with over time that dismissed her. I didn't want her to think I was one of those. And that perhaps is selfish of me to say. I didn't want her to think I was a bad guy. So I absolutely apologized to her and tried to explain that, and just said, I don't want you to think that your story doesn't go without merit, or that you're not believed.
And I hope she sees it that way.
She seemed to. She accepted my apology.
I know we wanted to give these women a voice. And I know that, maybe some people are saying to themselves, like, who cares about a 20-year-old, like, prostitution case that got an indictment but never was. But you know what? It does matter. It does matter. Because if you ask me if that could happen again.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure it is.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So I just think it's important to know how the criminal justice system actually works and what happens on the streets of cities across America, not just Akron.
No.
And I do think it's important for people to understand that human trafficking laws are still evolving.
Yes.
Like back when Terry Pasco was investigating this, he was doing solicitation of prostitution charges. Human trafficking was just becoming a thing. But now I think that it's changed the way that detectives investigate sex work.
Yes.
And it's changed the way maybe our culture views sex workers.
And the labor workers are also a big part of it. But before it was just compelling prostitution, 14 counts of compelling prostitution. Now there's a standalone provision for human trafficking. And I think there has been education within communities as to what it means. So we like to think it's moving forward.
I hope so. I hope so.
That's roughly about 18 months we were building this, because we started probably midsummer 2009. So it's about 18 months. And when he was out and the homicides and all that stuff started taking place, the thought was we still had to prepare our case like it was going forward, because in the event that everything fell apart on the homicide, we were going to get him for something. And so even though I had almost zero chance of that case going forward, I still had to prepare like it was, just in case things went bad, or God forbid he was acquitted. And so we had to do something. And so we kept working on it. But I was disappointed.
You had to be more than disappointed. Otherwise, you're a strong man.
It was frustrating, but it's nothing I could control. I didn't anticipate any of this, and I prepared the case the best that I knew how, but it was frustrating. I would have loved to go on in and testify.
I mean, you put all of this work into this particular case. You got 14 indictments. Am I using the right terminology?
14 counts.
14 counts in the indictment. So that was a slam dunk, right? And then the case sort of just goes nowhere. How does that feel?
Yeah, that was kind of disheartening, because this was like, for me, it was the biggest case I'd worked in Vice. I'd worked some other big cases, but this was like the case for me in Vice. We did some other drug cases later, but in Vice, that was my biggest case. That was like, oh man, this is so complex. It's actually challenging to work, and yet you feel some resolution when it's done. You're like, this is great. Look at this body of work. Look what the good we're doing. So it was disappointing that we didn't get to go to trial on that.
It was lucky that Amy had such a good relationship with Terry Pascoe.
Absolutely. I think, but for the fact that Detective Pascoe worked so closely with her all those years back, I don't know that she would have been as receptive to engage with us.
Yeah. Actually, it surprised me that she liked Terry Pascoe, since he arrested her so many times.
Yeah. I think it goes to what kind of individual you're dealing with in the criminal justice system. And Terry, I think, Detective Pascoe was ahead of his day in recognizing what human trafficking was. And I think he treated people with respect. He wasn't and this is good, this goes to the whole fact, like, we want the audience to understand that these people in the stories are actual people. He went home to a family at night, and he didn't treat people terribly, and he treated her with respect.
A message from Lieutenant Detective Terry Pascoe. He just wants to make sure that the Beasley investigation that he was involved in included a team of detectives. He just wants to give credit where credit is due. So hit that subscribe button, and thank you so much for listening. The God Hook, wherever you get your podcasts.